Okay, y'all, I have the sun in the fifth house today. Sun in the fifth house. So what does this mean? The sun is your ego, self-expression, your identity, what people know you to be more like. You're more this type of person, more of a fiery type or a more practical earthly type. That kind of thing. People know you for that, right? You know yourself to be that way too. It's in consciousness, awareness, which you will. Now, your fifth house is the house of entertainment, joy, fun. You're creative in the fifth house. If you have any planets in the fifth house, you're creative. You know how to make the most of, you know, what you have and, make it fun and make it, an exciting experience for other people to come around you. You like to have that recognition too as being a person who, knows what they're doing as far as making it a fun, creative, time, you know, pleasurable, for people to be around you. And if you also have this placement, it's likely you might have kids in the future. If you don't have kids now, you'll have kids later. And if it ain't that, then you're like the one who is childish. And I'll get to those signs and shit, right? And you still might have kids, but you're the one who's like more, you know, energetic, more, getting more, almost like a child at times. The key here is that people recognize you for who you are and what you do, and they like being around you. And like it don't matter what sign you have. So like Aries is the first sign we're gonna talk about. Aries, Sun in the fifth house. This sign, right? This is somebody who tends to be aggressive or impulsive, but it's also a person who is energetic and ain't afraid to tell you directly what the fuck's going on. People like that about them though, and they like to see them be themselves. They like to see them be themselves and be loud, outgoing, courageous, step forward and tell people like it is. When if everybody else ain't doing it, they're gonna do it. You know, people like being around that energy. They like being pushed by this person. They like being pushed to challenge themselves and do new things. Because this person's always doing something. Being a part of some kind of shit. And then they like when you recognize their vibrance, their energy they bring to you, and they like being around people. But like they could also be very turned off by people as well. You know, if they feel like you're not seeing, if they're not being seen the way they want to be seen either, they can be turned off by shit too. And if they get turned off by it, they'll let you know, right? They'll be like, oh well, today, you're not really doing what I need. I'll be doing my own thing, and what I like, what I set out to do. This is what I'm gonna do, and they don't like. They make sure they, stick to what their gut tells them, right? People love them for that. And these people may have kids, because they, get down like that too. They may have kids. If they especially have that extra planets in this house, they would probably have kids. Um, but people still like being around them. Their energetic vibes, it's very uplifting. They inspire people to move and take action in their own ways, and that's the reason why people like being around this person and having fun with this person. Whoever has Aries in the fifth house, and like this Aries is pretty much going to get more, fame or maybe more attention than another Aries. That's why that exists, right? Because this person has the sun in the fifth house, and then also Aries is the exaltation point of the sun. So you also have that going for you too. So you're definitely known, and people definitely know about you. Even if you think they don't, they do. You just might not. You might not be getting that attention you want, like and like you might be upset, and they would know if you're upset. But anyways, Taurus Sun in the fifth house. So Taurus Sun in the fifth house. What does this person do? This person doesn't necessarily like the spotlight per se, but like when they're doing something they like to do, and then people gravitate towards them. They're creative in their own way. They like to do physical activities. They like to work out. They like to be in nature. They like to do things with their hands. They like to be physically active, right? They care about the senses, right? Towards people, and especially this person too. They want to be that way with significant other, friends. They like to have people around them, you know. Now they might not always want that, right? They might want to be, to themselves, right? Now let's say that this Taurus person is actually really loved, and people really care about this person, and like they these other people need them around a lot more. Like when you're not here, it feels like we can't ever have fun, or things are just not as fun with when you ain't around. And this Taurus is like, but I like don't feel like being a part of all that today. They still force themselves to kind of like, God damn, I have to be here for these people, and I have to like be fun and exciting and other thing. If it's their friends, they're gonna do that for them. They're still gonna show up for them. Even if they don't want to. That day it might be a little not as fun, but still fun because they enjoy them just being there. They don't even give a fuck if this person's contributing to conversations as much, or you know they just like this person being there around. It gives them a sense of, not that, a sense of damn, things are just almost not home like, but like it's fun to be around them. I like just talking to this person and them giving a response every once in a while. This person ain't always like bubbly and shit, but they're bubbly around their friends, and they can, they're a person that, they can hear what other people are saying. They can take some time out of their day to do that. And then when they ain't doing that though, and they're themselves, right? And sometimes they'll just cut people off too. And people can respect that about them. Like their friends that are actually their friends will respect that about them. Okay, you can't hang out with me today. That's fine, man. We'll come back some other time when you feel, like you need to, you know, because, this person also, is a person who likes to, build and, stay consistent in their routine in their life and whatever they're trying to like accomplish, right? They're goal oriented people too. But then consistency is a thing. And that's why people like them, because they show up consistently. On like whatever shit they do, and it's like known because it's like the sun sign is in the fifth house. So like even if you're an introvert, that which is like Taurus is a more introverted, right? So people are still gonna know you to be that person that shows up consistently as part of that friend group. You're not the loudest person in the group, but you don't have to be, and they respect you for it. They appreciate what you contribute to conversations, and also what just being a good presence in the area, like in their life. Because sometimes it's like everybody else is toxic, and then you're like the least toxic. You might be toxic, right? But you're the least toxic out of the group. You know, or you make them feel that way. That kind of thing. Now, and like if you have the sun or any extra planets in this house, you might have kids too. And if you have kids, you're obviously gonna like probably take time to like have fun with them, um, and not uncreative or creative time towards you. Probably you might make content. You might you know be a person who's like really interested in the arts and appreciate the arts. Now the next person is Cancer. So or not Cancer, my bad. Gemini. Gemini next. Gemini sun in the fifth house. So this person likes to conversate and be a part of, um, like talking about what's going on everywhere. I heard about this from this person, and they just like to run around and spread gossip. But people like them because they're, around, and they're, a person to talk to. They're always going to talk to somebody about something. That's something they learn, something they, want to get off their mind. You know, they don't have time for the like, being secret. Now they might be keeping secrets, but when it comes to their circle and shit, they like to basically tell whatever, right? And they might be a little antagonistic in a way of like these people don't always stick to one thing. Once they find interest in something else piques their interest. Like mentally, they're like, okay, I want to look into this kind of thing now. I've done enough research here. I want to look into this kind of information, and then talk about it with these people. But I still like my friends and stuff. The friends that I like fuck around with. I'm just a person who likes to talk and stuff. Be around different people. With the people I come around, I like to always know what I'm talking about, and talk to them, conversate with them. You know, we like to have fun and laugh and tell jokes too. But I have a certain way of telling my jokes, right? Because if they're a Gemini, right? They have a way about them. They're smooth talkers. They talk clearly and other things, and they can actually. What I mean by this is they can make you feel stupid because of the way they articulate themselves and other things. But sometimes they're just doing that to like fuck with you, you know. And they might be smarter than you, but you know they have their way of telling jokes, and they like talking about other people. Um, that's not a good thing, but some people like being around those people, right? They could tell you some shit about somebody else. Like if you ask them something, right, and they'll be like, "Oh, um, I talked to them the other day, and they told me this." You know, sometimes they never talk to those people, but they are known as a person who likes to talk and be, you know, very communicative with people. So then you think that, oh wow, since they talked to so and so, they actually know this person very well. But they actually like to keep their friends around them and shit too, and kind of like manipulate them mentally a little bit. Don't trust what this guy says. I'm the one that knows about this and that because I've done research into this and that. I've read this and done this. And, I've talked to these people and these people, and they probably might not have. You know, that's a negative thing with this sign. But they might have kids too. Um, if anything, these people, man, they'll talk to their children and be involved in that one, but still preoccupied with other things because shit's always on their mind, you know. And they might have kids because there's higher likelihood of having children with this placement. I just gotta be honest with y'all, Cancer, Sun in the fifth house. Cancer, Sun in the fifth house. They really care about family. People who care about family, people who care about other people's emotional state. They like being around these people. If they feel and they can trust that you are emotionally intelligent, they like to be around that. These people are also very creative. You know, they might be an artist. They might be a person who's into that kind of thing. And if they are, then you know them to be that. They like to paint. They might like um, drawing or man, maybe even poetry a little bit. But you'll know about that. You know, if you're their friend though, they don't just find anybody, right? Because this is an introverted sign, right? They ain't just cool with anybody. They when they find the people they like, they hang around them, and they hang around them more often, right? These people like to be around the people they care about, right? And when they ain't around them, they kind of feel, slighted, or, you know, damn, like, I'm always there for you, and you don't, you know, treat me like I'm, important. They may feel like that when they ain't around their friends or the people they are like closely connected to, and they will feel that way. But also, these people will probably have children too. Um, Again, this is the sun in the fifth house. This is just one placement that has that kind of thing. Because then there's like some kind of there's in the fifth house there's sexual energy there because you're very energetic, very passionate. You show that kind of part of yourself when you're a Cancer. And Cancer isn't less passionate, but they ain't always like that. They like to basically, man, they like to care for and really appreciate the people they care about. Like they deeply care about you. They're gonna like show it, make you feel that way, and really support that. And they will too if they actually do care about you. And then they'll have kids with you maybe, or you know very likely they would. you know and then the people who like need them in their life and shit, they do appreciate them. They're like, even if I need to like, get away from you, I still appreciate you being in my life. They'll like call and be like, don't take shit personally. It's just, right now we have to go our separate ways. We'll come back together. I'm gonna come back for you. You know, you actually, because like these people are actually fun too. You know, if they have displacement and they like to, a little bit considerate towards like other people's, what they want to do. They don't mind doing what somebody else wants. And they can still be, fun and creative and, get their points across too. That, hey, I like art, take a look at what I, got going on, this kind of thing, this kind of thing. And of course it's only for the people, like to, and see it, see this person as a deep, caring person that they are, person who's, intuitive and can also tell when, their friends are down and when they're not, you know. But they probably have kids, though. Like, I think these people definitely have kids. If they have sun in the fifth house and they're Cancer, they probably definitely have kids. And then the next sign is um, Leo in the fifth house. This is a great placement to have. Leo rules the fifth house. Entertainment, fun, excitement. They like to get the recognition. As the person who brings that energy, brings the fun. You were down and they brought your spirits up. That kind of thing. And they like hearing that kind of shit. They need that reassurance, and they do. You know, the more mature ones know that they need that shit, and they get loud and they're proud about what they like. Whatever that might be. Any kind of entertaining stuff. You know, they like to get other people involved. As long as you ain't bringing the fucking vibes down, and like you're kind of like on subject with what like I like to fuck around with. Yeah, man, you can be around me and be cool. Um, in the King's territory and shit, right? In my arena. But no, you're in my arena, that kind of thing. And then like, these people probably have children too. And then if they do have kids, they make like fun parents probably. You know, still like stern a little bit, but like, more so like their kids will know them as a fun parent, probably. Probably somebody who's like, this is the parent that's kind of like cool with their kids or fun with their kids. But not always, because sometimes, I don't know, they still are the child themselves. So, and what I mean by that is they really, like I said, they need that reassurance and like that I am the guy or I am that female. You need to like let me know this shit at all like times. Almost at all times. They have a sense of arrogance even more now that it's in the fifth house, right? Great placement to have, by the way. You know, but it still comes with this, downside sometimes. But you still like, man, you'll still shine because it's like the fifth house and you're a Leo that has a Leo in the fifth house. People like to be around you. People like to have fun with you, and you'll always have that. Even when you think you don't. It's just one of those days where people just can't be around you. But then when they come back, you might be a little sideways, but you'll be sideways for like a little bit of time, and then you'll be like, "Ah, but they're here now. My friends are here now. The people I like, so I'm not really, that upset anymore. And you still like put your foot down and shit because like you're a fifth sign, right? So when you're having fun with me, you're having fun with me. And what I like to do is this. It's not what these other people do. We doing this kind of thing. You like to lay it on them like that. And you loud and proud about that stuff. So people appreciate that. Now, the next sign is Virgo in the fifth house. Now, Virgo in the fifth house, this person likes to have fun too. With their friends, family members, people they're close with, people they know will listen to them and, take information that they have or, if they like listening to other people, they like to, conversate with, these people because they feel they can trust them. I can trust them to, we're having fun. We know how to separate fun, time and, grind time, work time. We know how to like do that. There is time for that, with this kind of person. I can, get out and try new things. You know, People, probably like being around me, and you may or may not know this, or you know this, and it might tick you off sometimes, but or it might make you more like irritable, and it ain't because you necessarily hate these people, but even you need your space and shit, right? But you like being around these people too. So like these friends, they're like, oh, this guy, I like to ask him questions about shit I don't know. Because this guy likes to, or this female even likes to, know about different things, and she does research, he does research. They make sure that, when they have a routine, they try to, keep it. You know, they don't change it too much. They change it when necessary, right? They refine themselves all the time, because they like to be the best human beings they can possibly be, and people like them for that. You know, for their like hard extra work that they put into themselves. Paying attention to the details, the smaller things. The small things matter and shit in this person's life. So, and like people know this about them, and people like actually, the people who stick around them actually know that, and like that about them. When they see this person and they're just around this person's presence and they're doing whatever, you know, they appreciate it because it then makes this their friend want to be like that too. I want to make sure I have all the details covered. I want to make sure I stick to routine. I want to make sure that I'm, seeing everything, you know, for what it is, and every little detail in the situation. I'm not gonna like half-ass shit no more. When I'm around my friend like this, and they count on him like that. If they're friends with, a Virgo that has this placement in the fifth house, they like definitely count on for like that. You know, it could lead to like some pressure, but at the same time, like I said, Virgo, it's not like the most introverted, but it still needs its time to like, keep people off. Like if they're on the like, grind time, you know, I gotta work, I gotta, build myself up, I gotta keep what I have, I gotta, look at things and make sure I'm, good. You know, then I can, come around fun with you people, you hooligans, you fools, you know, and they do like doing that, especially Virgos who have this place. They always make sure they have their shit together first. And they always like ask you too, we're having fun now, but and they do that to just, remind you to like, hey, think a little bit, before, making a bad decision, that might, cost and it might be annoying at the time, but sometimes they save their friends' lives, sometimes they do. And like if you're their friend, of course, right, and you see that energy as not a negative thing to have, to be like, they ain't even nitpicking. It's just, they want to see you do better in life, and they like always try to give you advice, you know, because they ain't always doing that shit with other people. They ain't talking, because they ain't like the Gemini. They ain't talking to like anybody. They don't do that shit. They talk to the people that they trust and people that they think can like, do better for themselves. And that's the truth. So now we got Libra. Libra sun in the fifth house. Libra sun in the fifth house. This person likes to, man, they like to be the peacekeeper. They like to be calm, cool, and collected. So they like to, make sure things are, understood too. So like, okay, there's one side of an argument, and then there's another side of the argument. They like to like, he calls both, and hear from both ends, both sides. You're saying this, but this person might have a point when they say this kind of thing, and they can like, think about it from both sides. But eventually, they do actually, have, you know, an opinion on both. Sometimes they can't really, decide. That's where the indecisiveness of the sign comes in. But they're good mediators in a friend group. What I mean by that is they don't like to see their friends fight. They'll be the third person to step in there and be like, hey, why the fuck are you guys fighting each other? We're trying to have fun. We're trying to, not really. be, just, bitching at each other and, causing conflict, and they step in and do that kind of thing. And people appreciate that, you know, they kind of keep people's, mind right. You know, maybe we have to do, this kind of thing today. This person never gets to do, like, we never get to do what this friend wants to do. Let's do what they want for today. If they are a part of a friend group, and say, let's do what they want for today. Since we always do what this person wants to do, and they'll be the first voice to like say some shit like that. Like, let's make this shit fair and let's do what this guy wants to do. And because like maybe we can, we might actually like what he likes to do. You know, these people are leaders in that kind of way. They like to see both sides of things. They don't hate. See, they like to, create, peace. So they might be causing the problem too in the friend group. So what I mean by that is they might, cause another person to get out of sorts, and then like swoop in and be like that, hero, and be like, hey, guess what? This person's out of sorts. I don't know why they're out of sorts. They need to, calm down and not be so like that. They kind of be a little manipulative sometimes, because they like to like keep people around them. They like being around their friends and shit. So like they might cause like issues, and you might not even know it. They're actually good at doing that kind of thing. Might cause a problem just to keep you around and your friends around. I'm the one who, anytime something happens, I'm always there to try to quell it. I'm always there to, fix it. You know, I'm that kind of guy. I'm always, talking to people. I like to, let you know what's going on. They tell you shit like that. But, this person might have kids too. And if they do, they like to, make sure that communication is there with them. And they, tell me this, tell me that, never, be too secretive about shit, that kind of thing. Like ever, with me. If they're a parent, right? And if they aren't, they, keep their friends around. Um, and they do, like to, keep things safe. Have things going smoothly, whatever smooth is for them. So like, if their friends do this, do that, I want to see them do that. I want to see them do other things, because that means somebody else is influencing their mind and shit. I don't like that. But they're a person that's like there and cool enough to talk to, and that's why people like them, like being around them. They'll talk to anybody and they ain't afraid to. But like friends, they like to, actually be around them, talk to more, and have more in-depth conversation with them. Now, Scorpio's next. Scorpio in the 5th house. This person's intense. They seek intensity in their friendships, in their, life. When they're also creative about, creating this, intense, experiences that they're trying to have, right? But they don't like everybody. They're more secretive. They like you to be cool with them, and what that means with Scorpio is you ain't fucking with everybody else that much. You fucking with me, and goddamn, when we do stuff, it's like, not shit you get to do with everybody else. And you also, man, you don't tell nobody like shit that we do together. It's just a trust thing, They're a bit more selective, like they like to, have fun with. But they probably have kids too, by the way. If you are a Scorpio with the fifth house, you might have kids, and if you don't have kids now, you'll have them in the future, man, because you like to do shit like that. You like to have a sexual, presence in that kind of way, and guess what? When that comes too. But and you seek, deep kind of, connections all the time. So you're likely to have somebody, like that. No matter what the situation might be, you probably do. But you're also the type of person that would like die for like their kid too. You would kill for them. Like, for real. You know, come hella high water, it's like that. Not saying that other people don't, because they would too. But, like they love their kids and they, want to see them. But this person is like one to just do it. Man, you just don't know what happened to somebody, but it happened. It's handled, but this person does shit like that, but not for everybody, man. These people don't fucking just do shit like that, man. They do it for people who, consider them and consider, all the, hard times they've been through. Can you, run with me and be with me through my hard times and my hardships, and all of that. If you can do that, we're tight. If you can't, then we ain't. And the people who are around them and do that kind of shit, they have like close bonds with friends, with bitches, with whatever, whoever they have, deep emotional ties to. And they would, like I said, they like when you're a friend with Scorpio, you're a friend with them. But if you ain't, then, and you would know it. They just won't fuck with you. They won't say shit to you. They just won't give a fuck about you. And if you're still around them, they'll be like, they might say something like, "Hey, man, can you like please get the fuck away from me," or something like that. I'm not really, feeling that shit. And just the way it is. But people like their intense nature and their, deeper passion towards things. You'll make shit happen no matter what. Now Sagittarius, Sun in the fifth house. This person's also fun. This person also likes to, go around, be adventurous, try new things. If it sounds good to them in the moment, they'll just do it. They'll do it. They're risk takers. They definitely are risk takers. They ain't not risk takers. They take risks. With money, with anything. Relationships. I probably shouldn't fuck that bitch over there, but I'm gonna do it anyways because it's fun. And this person probably definitely has kids too. Because it's in the fifth house too. So like, you like to have fun with somebody, you like to have extra fun with them. You like to, really, see them for, who they are and, really be cool. Now you are a person who, because you're a Sagittarius, right, you like to, explore new things and be like that. And you are. But, people you have kids with, every once in a while you come through and, they say hi and, you like to be a person who, man, you can't, it's because you don't want to be tied down and shit. But, when you are around, it's like, the fun times. You try to be, like, what I'm saying is you try to be that way for your kids. Because you believe in, having an optimistic personality, and when you come around people, you want them to remember you for, like, being, fun, happy, optimistic. You don't always like being a douchebag necessarily, and you might be a douchebag from time to time, but sometimes they laugh at that because it's like where other people would hold shit back. You tell them, "Oh, you stupid bitch, you this, you that, you this," you always like telling them what you think, exactly how you think. And people like being around you for that, and enjoying that, take a time with you. Some people like to like try to keep you, and you're like, no, I don't want to fucking be there. Sorry, man, or sorry, bitch, but I gotta go do. you know, I might see you later, man, but not. Now, Capricorn, Sun in the fifth house, this person gets enjoyment from being around people who like have goals in life. Like just if you have like goals in life and you're trying to build and you stick to routine, you make sure you accomplishing your goals and they can see that, they're like, man, I like being around you. Because you push me to be a better person. They like, those kind of challenges too. They like to overcome challenges. But like they like to hang around those type of people, and then these people like them because they're very ambitious and goal-oriented individuals. And like they also keep people like thinking about shit even when they're having fun. It's like damn, we're having fun right now, but like when we get back to this grind, I like being around this person, learning from this person who's a Capricorn Sun because they like to like lock in, and then when they go to have fun, they like to consider people in their fun. Let's go do this. Let's go do this activity because they're an Earth sign, so they like to do all kind of stuff. Anything that's physically active, going to the gym, going to play sports, going to, shoot the shit somewhere, just do shit with the guys or, whoever they're with. And if they have kids, they're really going to be about their kids. And like in a serious way, not a, stupid kind of way, in a serious way. And you know what I mean by that. They're gonna really lay it down and be like, you don't do this shit, you don't do that shit, do this, do that, get a job, do that kind of thing, son. Don't fuck around with these people, and like that kind of thing, when they have to do that. But if they don't have kids, they just are like that a little bit with their friends. They're like, I know we're having fun and shit right now, but you should really like consider doing this kind of thing like I told you to do. Like, do this if you want to like get your life right. Because I'm not gonna fuck with you anymore. Like, and they'll tell them like that too. I won't fuck with you anymore, and like be friends with you or anything. I'll cut you the fuck off because I like you, but you are not doing like what you have to do for yourself. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not goal oriented enough. And they might be the asshole, but and they're doing it to kick you in the butt and like make you do something, make your life better. You gotta want that for yourself, kind of shit. And like their friends actually do appreciate it, because sometimes they didn't have dads, or maybe they, and they just needed that friend that kicked them in their ass and gives them a reality check. And this person is like good for that, and that's what their friends like about him, and that's why they come around. Even when this person's like, I don't want to fuck with you today, and they're like, oh man, I want to, be around. It's like one of those kind of deals. So now Aquarius in the fifth house. This person, right? This person is creative. They like to have fun. They like to talk to people. They like to keep people guessing a little bit. The way they think and communicate with people is not different, but they like to try to think outside the norm, that kind of thing, and pose questions to people like that. And people don't. All people hate that. Like being around them and talking about things that they think are serious and people should like take more like note of. Did you ever think of doing this, or think of things more like this than like that? I know what people are saying this, but maybe it's not that, and it's this kind of thing. When they like being a little bit of like in the conspiracy theories and all kind of other shit, like that. We can think forwardly too. Let's come together, friends, and let's try to like make something fun happen for us. But it's also not just fun; it's also something that we can look forward to, and we're around each other. It's a great time. But we also, and this person's like also really smart, right? So they know how to, and it might not seem like it sometimes, but they are like, they are a person who can like, have fun when they need to have fun, but also, consume knowledge when they consume knowledge, and then also bring that into, their friend groups. And friends, always appreciate them because they're people bringing like new information to a conversation. a new like idea or new perspective of like a way to think, way they're thinking, and then also understanding that other people may think that way, and also it's like not even like they're telling you your way of thinking is wrong. It's just like they like to know people's what's on people's minds and shit, and they like to be around people, but they like hang out with all kind of people too. They don't just hang out with one person. But when they're around their friends, they can really cool down with them and really talk more with those people. Their unpredictable nature, it leaves their friends like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting that kind of thing from you today, and you're doing that. Like, yeah, that's what I do, because I think that I need to do more like this, because when they like their friends, right, they actually do consider what their friends do, and then they might you know when they feel like either think they want to do something that their friend was considering or telling them about to do it, and then it will surprise their friends, and they'll be like, wow, I never thought you would do something like this. And they keep people on their toes. People like to think a little more. You may think I'm gonna do something like this, but am I really? I might do something else that you have no fucking idea. You know, but people appreciate them for that kind of thing. Keeping them on their toes, and also contributing new information to conversation. But anyways, we have the next sign and the last sign, Pisces in the fifth house. Pisces in the fifth house. Your person is definitely creative. Your person who makes things fun too. Your person who also probably has kids. Pisces is your person who likes to seize opportunities and come in and kind of be that, like, you have that aura and that energy of a savior, of a person who likes to hear other people out and like really make them change their mood from a negative to a positive. you know you could also very well be a person like you're influenced by your environments too. So, and what I mean by that is you might not even realize it, but like once you realize it, you realize it. And then you're like, well, like once you realize that, and you do at some point in your life, like other people's mood can really fuck with the way I feel, and I don't like that. So you're gonna make yourself around the people that make you feel uplifted and other things, and then you're gonna also want to like uplift people who are not feeling like that, because you can still like you still know what the fuck's going on with somebody else. Not what the fuck's going on with them, but you can like tell when somebody's like a little off. You're like, this guy's a little off. I don't know what it is exactly, but they're making because like they're making you feel some type of way. And if they're doing that, that that's negative energy or something. And you also have the balls to like go up there and like even if it fucks with you in a negative way, you're not closed off to the fact that you might be that person who like makes a difference in somebody's life. Even if it's just kind gestures or something like that. You know, you might invite somebody into your friend group, and be like, this is what we do, and this is what I do. I'm one of the people who, I'm more creative. I'm into the arts. I might be poetic at times. When you have a like significant others, and I say others too, you like to be very romantic or do shit like that, right? And you like to really satisfy people that you with guys and girls too, like both. But you be around a lot too. So guess what? You probably have kids too. Um, and you live life and you learn certain things, that you've experienced. About basically the negative and positive sides of life. And you rather be more positive than negative. And you can talk about the negative things and try to help somebody, use that as fuel to become somebody, more positive and more, and learn from like wisdom and like have learn from your experiences and then have that wisdom so you can move forward better. And like people like being around you for that reason too, not just because you're creative and fun and that kind of thing. Because you also are, a little bit deep too. So that's all the signs in the fifth house, sun in the fifth house. I'll come at you next week with the moon, and the week after that with all the other planets in the fifth house. We're at the fifth house right now. But be cool, go on the corner, and let me know what you think in the comments.